Ooh, that looks tasty. Welcome, folks. Today, The Hungry Gamer is back with my nominees for Game of the Year 2024. Also, in addition to that, I'm going to announce my honorable mentions for Game of the Year, and I'm also going to announce right now my Expansion of the Year winner and honorable mention, because there wasn't much competition as far as I'm concerned for Expansion of the Year, and pretending like I need to play all of them again is, no, I don't need to. But before I jump into what these are, first of all, it's very important to know that every single person who is nominated is going to get this amazing seal sent to them to do whatever they want with. I mean, isn't that just gorgeous? But when I come back and I announce the winner's gonna get this one, which is even more amazing. And as a reminder, or if you've never watched one of these before, the way I do my Game of the Year is my year goes actually from about November 15 to November 15. And that's because in November, which we are still barely in, I like to announce my nominees. And then I take pretty much all the rest of November and all of December to replay those games so I can rank them. Because if I don't do it that way, what happens is there's kind of an end of the year bias. Games that showed up later in the year, I've probably been playing more recently because they just showed up, while games that arrived early in the year I may love, but they may just kind of be on the back burner for the moment. So I found that this kind of works the best for me. The next thing I'm going to say is, unlike most of my review videos, where I really try very hard to talk about what works and what doesn't work in my opinion about a game, even if I don't love the game. There's lots of games that I've reviewed very, very favorably because they're doing really cool stuff. It's just not for me personally. But I don't know, I'm not so arrogant to think that you're watching this just because you want to play exactly what I like, rather because you want to learn about a game and see if it's right for you. So that's how I do my reviews, but for this is literally my favorite games I've played, period. And so that does kind of lock out a lot of types of games. A historical war game is probably never going to be on my Game of the Year list. I'm not going to say it can't happen, but it probably won't because historics really aren't my jam. Same thing with direct card battlers are probably not going to be on my Game of the Year. Roll and writes are probably not going to be on my Game of the Year. Doesn't mean it can't happen, but probably not. The same thing with really light games and really heavy games. While I like light games and I like heavy games, in general, for me, it's kind of that board game geek 2.3 to like 3.5, somewhere in there. Like, that's pretty much my sweet spot. And what I like, medium, really medium weight games, medium light, medium heavy, sometimes a light heavy, kind of in there. But games that are really light probably aren't going to make the list. Same thing with games that are really heavy. So, with that said, I want to jump right in and talk about Expansion of the Year. So there's three games that I want to talk about here. And first I'm going to give you my honorable mention Expansion of the Year, and that is Bullet Paul. And the reason that this is an honorable mention is because this is not an expansion that, for me, changes the game, changes the way the game is played in any way. It's a more of the same expansion, but it's just really good. It's really good. And it sings. It's a great expansion. I adore it. I adore the cats doing cat stuff. And it's great. It's a wonderful expansion. So Bullet Paw is my expansion of the year honorable mention. And they're going to get this amazing seal, which is incredible. Then I actually, for the first time since my first Game of the Year video, I actually have a tie. I actually have two expansions, I should say, that are expansion of the year for me. And they're going to get this amazing seal. And in no particular order, the first one is Distilled Cask Strength. This is a tiny, single, small box deck of cards that updates a few of the ingredients you have, but it adds this market. And it just takes a game that I like a lot. I think Distilled is as solid of a game as you can get. I will never say no to playing it. It's delightful. But what Cast Strength does is it adds this market that just changes how you have to think about everything that you're doing every single round, and I am here for that. The upgrades to the different cards and the ingredients, that's great, but oh my gosh. Cast Strength is amazing. I will never play Distilled without Cast Strength again if I have a choice. I'll also say the Middle East, North Africa expansion I think is absolutely necessary. Absolutely necessary. But the Cast Strength is fantastic. If you are a Distilled fan and you don't have this, you need to get it. If you are thinking about getting Distilled, you need to get it with this expansion. It's just great. I love it. It's such a simple change to the game that just is fantastic. And then my co-winner for expansion of the year, again getting this amazing seal, is Gears of Corruption for Expeditions from Stonemaier Games. Expeditions was in my Game of the Year nominees last year. It wasn't the winner, but it was in the nominees, and I really enjoy the game. It's one of the few games that has kind of a slow burn, a slow build that I particularly enjoy. But perhaps a little too slow to start out. And then what the Gears of Corruption expansion does, one, it gives you 2 new mechs, which is cool. But what it really does that's really cool is it speeds up the game a little bit. It varies what you get to start with. It adds a new worker meeple that's a wild, so even if for some reason you're blocked out of getting a worker on the first turn, you still have one that you're able to use. And it adds a interesting corrupt mech that's kind of running around and kind of attack you, which can add a little bit of interest to the game. It adds a little bit of dynamism to the board. And all around, it's an expansion that I just think really works well. Again, like with Distilled, this is an expansion that I will never play the game without. And so because of that, and also because both expansions fit in the core box, because of that, both of these games are my expansion of the year winners. It was not close. And so there you have it. That's those. Now, moving into the main event, talking about my Game of the Year nominees. This year, I'm back to having 5 nominees. I know every now and then I'll throw in a 6th, but this year we only have 5. And so in no particular order, truly, because this is a year for me that I had no standout. And not that these games aren't all great, they are. But often I'll have 1 or 2 games and I'm like, oh, if I wasn't going to go back and replay these games, this would be the one. And that's not always right. In fact, usually it winds up being wrong when I replay other games, like, oh, nope, wasn't what I thought it was going to be. But this year, I just have a bunch of games that I'm like, I really like this game. I really like this game. I really like this game. So moving into that, but of course, before I do that, boy, I'm all over the place today. But you know, we're going to leave this in so you can see just how much of a goober I am if you didn't already know. So my honorable mentions for Game of the Year, and I have 2 this year, and they're going to get this amazing seal. And the reason I have these 2 games is something that I alluded to earlier. One of them is just lighter of a game than is going to be what I consider my Game of the Year. It's a game that I will play a lot, and will have it at every convention that I go to, and will have it at every game day that I go to, and I will play it in a second. But for me, it just doesn't quite have the depth of a game that is a Game of the Year for me. And that is Murray the Asshole Frog from Devious Weasel, designed by Jenna Kincaid. And it's fabulous. You have to have at least 3 players, and I think it shines at 4 or 5. But it's this very thematic set collection game where you are going to be playing these bugs out, little swarms of bugs, and that's how you're going to score your points. You get more points for having like types of flies, and then you get even more points for big swarms. But the problem is, every now and then Murray, the asshole frog, shows up, and he's going to eat somebody's swarm. And every time he does it, he's going to leave a little tadpole behind, which it's just, everything about that's so asshole, right? He's going to show up, he's going to eat your thing, and he's going to leave. And oh, by the way, here's a kid you get to take care of for me. I'm out of here. And there's ways to kind of mitigate this, and there's powers on the different flies that you're playing and moving things around. And it's a game to me that, one, I did not think would be thematic. It is amazingly thematic. anytime you're like, why is this happening? You're like, oh, because Murray's an asshole. That's the reason. That's why it's happening. And it's just a blast. It is just a blast every single time I play it. It has not failed to hit once. Fantastic game. And for that reason, it is one of my honorable mentions this year. Just wonderful. And I think it's $25 with free shipping from the Devious Weasel website. I mean, go buy this right now. Go buy the game. It's really, really good. And then the other one is on the other end of the spectrum. And this is a game that for me, again, is not going to be my game of the year because it's so heavy. It is a heavier game than I'm going to want to be pulling out on the regular. And so for that, it falls into honorable mention because I think it's really good. Like really, really good. It's just pretty darn heavy. And that game is a Deep Shelf from Ninth Haven Games. This is a very complex game. It is one of those games where everything that you're doing is a challenge. You know that you have to buy this module for your sub. Well, how do you buy the module? You need these elements to buy the module. Okay, well, how do you get those elements? Well, you have to send your sub out somewhere or have an extractor out on the bottom of the ocean to do this thing. Well, how do you get the extractor? You have to have money. How do you get money? You have to have something to sell. And so it's a little bit of the kind of a vicious cycle to where there's times you're like, how do I do anything? But you can, because it all makes sense. And it's really satisfying once you figure it out. The first couple turns that you play, maybe the first half game that you play, you're going to be like, I can't figure this out. But once you do, it's really cool. It has this really cool action selection system where you're doing 2 actions every turn. It's card-based. And one of them, you're going to do the thing, you're going to pick it back up. The other one, though, you're going to have to lose it for a turn. But sometimes it has what's called a power action. You're going to overwork it, so it'll be extra powerful, but it's going to stay there for a while. And so you're constantly kind of choosing, trying to think a turn or two ahead as you're moving around, discovering these tiles out there on the board, extracting these minerals, and you're refining the minerals, and you're buying stuff, and it's very clever. And it has a very cool co-op campaign that you can also do. Your different factions are all very different. You don't think they're very different, but they're really different. And it's just kind of everything that I want in a heavy game. But it's a real brain burn every time you play. And so for that, it is an honorable mention as a fantastic game, just heavier than it is my general preference. So that is Deep Shelf as my second honorable mention. If you're interested in the game, I highly recommend getting the metal coins, and I highly recommend getting the 5th player faction, the yellow faction, because it does different things and it fits right in the core box, which is great. Now, moving into the top 5 games of the year. Now, these are in no particular order, and I'm checking it right now on my little list here. I have either done a review or a preview and or a playthrough of every single one of these games. So here we go, jumping in again in no particular order, just in an... You know what, I will put it in particular order. We will do this alphabetically. We'll see if the English teacher can do that on the fly. So, starting at A, we have Andromeda's Edge from Cardboard Alchemy, designed by Luke Laurie. And this is on the edge. Ha! See what I did there? This is on the edge of weight for me. And this might be one that I would say is, it's a little heavier than I like, but I've been playing this game for years. And I've seen kind of the progression and how it's grown and how it's changed. And I love Dwellings of Eldervale, which is the spiritual precursor to this. And it was actually my runner-up game of the year a couple years ago. And it has that DNA. A lot of people say, oh, it's the same game, but it's not the same game. This is a crunchier, more tableau-focused, more track-focused game, and it's really good. The solo mode is incredibly robust, and of particular interest to me, it has a stunningly beautiful retail edition that has a human-sized box that I am here for, to be clear. It's not because it has an amazing deluxe version and an amazing retail version on this list. It's on the list because it is a very good game, and I've yet to play a game where I'm like, that wasn't fun. I always lose, but I've yet to play one that I've thought I didn't have a good time. And I'm also really here for the improvements to the solo mode over Dwellings. I love the Dwellings solo mode. This one is more robust, it's more interesting, and I think it's just really, really good. Next, moving to B, we have Buru from Crafty Games. And to be clear, this one is on the list, but with the expansion, the Ambilao expansion. I think you absolutely must have that. This is a blind bidding game. Very fast game, plays up to 5 players and almost the same time you're going to play through with 2 players. It has an interesting little bot that you can add in, actually 2 bots you can add in to play solo or to kind of expand your game. And especially, well, if the retail version is beautiful and the deluxe version is just stunning, stunningly beautiful game. Stunningly beautiful game, everybody. It's just gorgeous. But it's a bidding game, and there's 4 or 5 regions if you use the expansion where you are putting your workers out, your bids. And they're all face down, so you don't actually know what people are going to do. And usually you don't have enough workers to hit every single space. And usually and often there are bonuses for being the person to win each region, because everyone's going to get something from a region if they bid there, but if you win the region, you're going to get first choice. And this is a game where it is not everyone is equal in a spot. There are better things, actively better. So resources, if you're there first, you're going to get 3 things. If you go last, you might get 1 thing. And so it has this really cool kind of trying to figure out what people might be doing, what they might be bidding. Are they just going here so they can take the god totem? Because the other part of the game is you're gathering your resources so you can pay tribute to these gods. And that's how you're going to score most of your points throughout the game. But if I know that everyone around the table is going to go really hard for the green god, well, maybe I bid really hard to claim that totem. Get the first bid, win the forest region, then when everyone else is doing their tributes, I'm also getting paid out. It has a really cool kind of tableau system that you're building as you're hiring workers, and you have to use another space to actually activate the workers, but it works really, really well. It is a fascinating game, very fun, very beautiful, and plays lightning fast. It is a really fast game, and when it's cooking, it is cooking. Again, though, needs the expansion, in my opinion, which came with the original Kickstarter, and you can get them both. But Buru is number 2. Now, I know you all have guessed it, moving into C, we have Collab from Dragon Portal Games. Now, this is a game that I got excited about based off the theme. You are kind of a down-in-your-luck mad scientist or super scientist, depending on how you view it. And because of that, you and a bunch of other super scientists, you have to get a shared workspace, i.e. the collab. And the way that plays out is you have these minions that are going out on the board, and in the deluxe version, they're little minions that actually hold the dice above their head, which is awesome. And the dice are different resources, and you're putting them around the board, worker placement style, and you get something for putting them out. And then you're moving your scientists around to the different rooms in between the worker placement spots, and you're using resources that you either already have, as kind of wild resources that you've put on your player board, or dice that you have in your dice pool that you haven't used yet, or the workers that are holding the dice above their head. And you can use your minions or another player's minions, because it's very much, you're a mad scientist, you don't care. Oh, you minion, give me this thing. And of course the minion's going to say yes because they don't want to get vaporized or whatever. And so you're building up this tableau of cards, inventions that you're building, and the inventions will interact with each other. They'll do things. Maybe it's potions that you can use a potion that lets you do something, or it's a mechanical thing that actually has a switch. Like, think of those big electrical power switches. It actually has those. You put on the cards. And it's this beautiful looking game. And it's huge. Like, you don't play this on a human-sized table. It's huge, huge, huge. These great chunky minis. They look good. The art is spectacular. It has a solid solo mode. I'm just really in awe of it. And it reminds me a little bit of Expeditions in one way. When I mentioned Expeditions earlier, I said it's a slow burn of a game. And Collab is that too. It's a game that you kind of start out and it feels early on like not much is going on, and then maybe a third of the way through the game it starts to ramp up, and then suddenly in the last 2/3 of the game, like, just everything is happening. But it's kind of a slow build, and they do have some options out there to kind of speed it up a little bit, and I have gotten to experiment a little bit with some of the expansion content that they have coming sometime down the road, which actually speeds up the game even more. But really, really good game. This is one that, like I said, I reached out and said, please, can I cover this based on the theme? And I have not only not been disappointed, I've been amazed. That is Collab. Continuing on with the C's, we have Conquest Princess Fashion is Power from Fight in a Box Games. This is a crisis management game with the craziest fever dream of a theme you have ever seen. The fashion tyrant Mugaha is taking over the world, and you and your fashion agents of Tiara, I can't remember what Tiara stands for, you're going to use the Conquest Princess, which is like your Voltron robot that comes together, and with the power of friendship and fashion, you're going to save the world. Yeah, and I think I'm downplaying that a little bit. I mean, it's crazy pants, but it's this very clever cooperative bag builder. You're drawing tiles out of a bag, and that determines your success or lack of success, if you're me, as you're playing through the game, as you're fighting off these minions, and it has multiple scenarios that have different kind of win conditions. The lose condition is pretty much the same. If you ever run out of things to wear, then you lose, because this time ship, a little Doctor Who-ish, will stop bad things from happening. But every time it has to stop bad things from happening, it has to kind of reset the timeline, and some of your amazing fashion items disappear out of your closet. And look, let me be clear. I am not a fashion guy, but I am so here for this game. It is spectacular. It is hard as hell, but it is spectacular. And when I initially played it several years ago at KublaCon, it was fine. And I was like, okay, I love the designer, so yeah, we'll try it. But it has just progressively gotten better and better and better until it's just amazing. And it has some of the most ridiculous components that you can get if you go super deluxe. It's got the biggest playmat you ever saw. Fantastic game that I've known I liked it for a while when I did previews and did a playthrough that you can see. But since I've gotten it, like, they just locked down everything to where it's just, if you're into crisis management games and you don't have this, you have made a mistake in your life. And then moving into D. Nah, just kidding. E. We're moving to E. And that is Explorers of Navoria from Dranda Games. So there's the D, Dranda. And this is one that I didn't know what to expect. I previewed it. And with a full clarity here, this is the one that I have played the least since it arrived. So this is like the real wild card in this list. This is a light-heavy game, or a heavy-light game. But whatever it is, this is at the very bottom end of the complexity that I really, really enjoy. And it's just this gorgeous, again, it's gorgeous. It has this wacky creature art that is great, and you're exploring the region, you're collecting resources, you're playing out cards, and this is one that when I previewed it, I remember reading through the rules, and I was like, okay, this will be fine. And then I played it, and I literally sat at my table, because I just played it two-handed, because this was before there was a solo mode. There is a solo mode now that came with one of the expansions, and I sat there and I looked at it, and I actually said out loud, I was like, was this that good? And I immediately reset it and played it again, just two-handed, because just something about this game, everything just connects and clicks and works together. And it's just a beautiful game that, well, it's in my top 5. It's just a huge surprise to me that it has stuck with me like it has. Because let me tell you, when that thing showed up, I was over the moon excited for it. And it's great. It is a fantastic game that I think is a little bit under the radar. Actually, I think several of these games are under the radar, but that's kind of how I do, I guess. And it's one that I'm really excited to dig into a lot more. I think for this game, it's going to come down to kind of the solo mode, and how does the solo mode pop? Is it really going to be kind of where this game lands? Because competitive, it's just amazing. It's wonderful. I love everything about it. So there you have it, folks. That is my expansion of the year winners and honorable mention. That is my honorable mentions for game of the year and my 5 nominees. What's going to happen now is I'm going to spend from now and through the end of December replaying these games as many times as I can to be able to put them in order. I would love to know down in the description if you've played any of those games and what you think. Even if you don't like them, I'd love to know why. Let me know down in the comments. I'd also love to know what your games of the year are. There's a whole bunch of great games that people have commented on one of my posts I made on the YouTube page. And the amount of games that came out this year is huge. So there's going to be tons of games that I didn't play. There's actually several games that I thought might be a Game of the Year contender for me that I just didn't get played in time because I have so many right now that I'm trying to work through. But there you have it, folks. This was a really good year of games, I think, but it was a year where the top, like, it's a crowded top. This isn't one of those years where there's a couple up here, and then, okay, let's pull some up and see what I think. No. It is crowded at the top, and that is awesome. So, 5 great games. We'll see where they land. Let me know what you think of those games. Let me know your list. In fact, you know what? Let me know what how you think I'm going to rank these games, too. I'd love to see if anybody knows before I do and gets it right. So, there you have it, folks. As always, if you found this video useful, please like, subscribe, share, maybe become a channel member. As always, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.